use synthetic division to determine if x equals 1 and x equals I are zeros of the function f of x is equal to. And I'm going to do one that we did earlier. I know we did this one earlier. Yeah. X cubed minus 3x squared plus x minus 3. So it's good to see the different directions, right? Because it's not always going to be asking the same thing, and it's more about understanding why I use certain steps, when, where, why, how. So I'm going to kind of spice it up a little bit, change those directions. In this case, it says use synthetic division to determine if x equals 1 and x equals I are zeros of this function. So what does it mean for something to be a zero?
Equal to 0.
It makes the function equal to 0, right? So for example, if x equals 1 was a 0, it would mean I would plug in 1 and I would get 0 once I've simplified it. Does that make sense? You guys remember that about zeros? It means that x value you plug in and you get 0 as your answer. So that's what we want to figure out, is if I'll get 0 as an answer. But the remainder theorem tells me all I have to do is synthetic division, and the remainder will give me the answer. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to, instead of actually plugging in 1, I know you could plug in 1, and I know it's really easy. I do. But I told you to use synthetic division, so you better use synthetic division. So let's do that synthetic division. Again, my coefficients, 1, -3, 1, -3. Now I'm going to first try for x equals 1. So that means I'm going to put a 1 out here, right?
Why is it 1 and not -1? I just get confused.
I know, it's tricky, because this one was written as x plus 3, so that one changes.
So if there's an x in the
Divisor, then yeah, this is just the number, x equals 1.
So if there's no x, it's
Well, there's technically still an x, you can't say that.
on the other side.
On the other side of the equal sign, then, sure, yeah.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I thought you said that only worked for linear.
Yes, this is linear. Do you see any x squareds anywhere?
Oh, okay.
There you go. Okay, so far so good. Okay. What do I do?
Drop it down.
Then what?
Multiply.
Then what?
Add.
We can get sick of that, right? You do that real quick now, probably, right? So then I multiply, and then I add, and then I multiply, and then what?
Add.
I add. So what is my remainder here?
-4.
So what is the answer? No, perfect. That's the answer. It's not. I needed there to be a 0 there. So this means that x equals 1 is not a 0 of this function. So now we got to do kind of like our part B, the next one. We needed to also try the other x value it gave me. So I'm going to set up synthetic division again. What's the other x value it gave me to try? I. It's okay to have an imaginary number as a 0. When we did the quadratic formula, we got i's all the time. There's nothing wrong with that. What does it mean when you have an imaginary 0?
It doesn't exist.
Not that it doesn't exist, it's that it doesn't cross the x-axis. Do you guys remember that? For imaginary zeros, it was something like this. It never crossed the x-axis. So that's still possible to have an imaginary 0. It's just that means you can't graph it, right? You mean you can't graph the x-intercepts. All right, so now let's go ahead and do this. What do I do?
Drop the 1.
And then what? So what's I times 1? What's -3 plus I?
-3.
-3 plus
Plus
I
I.
is
What's I equal to again?
Square root of -1.
it's I.
No, square root of -1.
So it's just I minus 3.
Yeah, it's just -3 plus I. You can't combine those. They're not like terms. Right? Does that sound familiar?
Right. Yep. Sure does now.
Sure.
Right.
Get rid of it here in a second.
Then what?
Multiply.
Multiply. Okay. So here's where you're going to need some scratch work. There's nothing wrong with doing some scratch work, right? So I'm going to take that I, and I'm going to multiply it by -3 plus I. Now this is
I
why I taught
squared.
you 3.1 a couple weeks ago. Distribute. And that's going to give me a -3i plus I squared, right? What is I squared?
-1.
So this becomes -3i minus 1, right? Excellent. negative 3i minus 1. Okay. So that was my multiply, then what?
Add.
So what's 1 plus negative 3i minus 1?
Negative 3i.
Right? And then what?
Multiply
Okay, so
again.
what's I times negative 3i?
Negative 3i.
Negative 3i squared, right? But that I squared is negative 1, right?
Right.
3.
So then I add and I get what?
Oh, wait.
Right? So what is the answer?
I is a 0.
So x equals I is a 0. Because I got 0 as the remainder. That means when I plugged in I here, I would have combined some like terms. Everywhere I saw an I squared, I would replace it with a negative 1, and I would have gotten 0.
Isn't it negative 3i squared? Oh, and then it should be 3, it should be positive 3.
Yeah, that is a positive. Could you not see that? I'm sorry.
It was a negative.
I'm sorry.
Okay, that's where I got
I'm sorry.
looking at going.
Because it was negative 3i squared, right?
Uh-huh.
What's I squared?
Negative 1.
So negative 3 times negative 1 is a positive 3. Okay, questions?
So when on a quiz it says, do you want both x equals 1 is not a 0 and x equals I is 0?
Yes, because this was a 2-part question. It was asking for both parts.
Okay.
Yes. Okay, so far so good? The zeros and factor. Let's do one that is going to work. I don't want to give you one that's not going to work. We'll do this. F of x equals x to the 4th minus 4x cubed minus 7x squared plus 34x minus 24.
And this type of question is it always to do synthetic division or
This one wouldn't say either. You could pick.
you do pick.
Yeah, if I don't specify, you could pick. I'm going to pick synthetic division because that's what we're on right now, but you could also if you really want. Okay. I feel like I'm forgetting something.
Yeah,
What am I forgetting?
or D,
The x equals.
or something.
No, not from this question. I feel like I'm forgetting something I was supposed to say before this. And you're recording there, and I'll delete that. Was there something I did before? Maybe not. Okay, well, I think we're right. Let's just keep, you guys are okay, right? I'll let you know if I think of it, whatever. It's in the back of my mind. Okay, so find the zeros and factor this. So, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to do some synthetic division. Okay? And I'm going to, in fact, try to guess what number would work. Right? Here I tried 1, it did not work. Here I did work. If I did not give you those numbers, how would you know which one to guess? Right? That's the trick. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up the synthetic division. This is a 1, a negative 4, a negative 7, a 34, and a negative 24. So I'm going to set this up. And I want to think of what number I want to try to guess. There's a lot of numbers in the world. In case you didn't know that. Pick a number. Which number do you want to guess?
4.
4.
Is that how I'm supposed to do it?
No, there's a trick. 2. I like. There's a trick. The numbers that you should pick are the numbers that divide evenly into the last number. That helps you narrow it down significantly, right? And we're going to write this up as a theorem in about 20 minutes or so. But the numbers that you should pick to guess are the numbers that divide evenly into negative 24. So somebody said 4. I'm going to go 4 because that was the first one somebody said.
So you could give 2, 4.
2, 4, 6, 12, 8, 3. Yeah, the numbers that divided evenly into that. So I'm going to pick 4 because that's what somebody said.
As the divisor.
As the guess of what I think the 0 is.
And if it doesn't work, you have to go
Then you
back.
go back and try a different number.
Are there more than 1 zeros?
Yes.
So as long as we find 1, we can stop.
Well, then you can factor it.
Okay.
Let me finish. So, synthetic division. Drop the 1 down, then what? Multiply and then
Add.
add, and then what?
Multiply.
multiply, and then add. You see what we're doing here, right? So what's negative 7 times 4? That's negative 28, right? And that turns into a what? 6, right?
Yeah.
And then 4 times 6 is 24, so that's a total fluke bit. Normally the first one you guess doesn't work, so well done. Good guess. Normally the first one doesn't work, to be honest. Okay? That one just happened to work the first time. So I got that one to work. So what does that mean? That means, and again I'm trying to factor, right? Because 4 is a 0, x minus 4 is a factor.
Okay.
That's right. Because 4 is a 0, x minus 4 is a factor. So that's that x minus 4 from here. And then, so you do the quotient, right? The remainder of 0, this was my quotient. So this is now going to be an x cubed plus 0x squared minus 7x plus 6.
But before you just had us writing it as our answer, it is, or it is or it is
Well,
not.
that's a completely different question. Read the directions, order matters. This is asking me to factor.
Because 4 is a 0.
Because 4 is a 0, x minus 4 is a factor. Because 4 is a 0, x minus 4 is a factor. Okay, so far so good. Okay, so now I've almost got this done. I've almost factored this, right? So I've got the first step to factoring, and now we're going to continue by factoring this guy. So now it's this guy that I need to factor.
You just do it.
So now you're going to set up the synthetic division with this next polynomial. And that polynomial has a 1, a 0, a negative 7, and a 6. Right? I'm just going to try to factor this guy now.
Quick question, how did you get that guy again?
This one?
Yeah.
It was a 4, so it's a bit.
No.
This one? Oh. X cubed, 0x squared, negative 7x, 6x. Or sorry, 6.
So we skipped the x squared?
Because it was a 0. You know, normally it's just because it was 0.
But you throw it back in and you're trying to factor the rest.
Yes, we can try to factor it.
You have to guess again?
Yeah, you gotta guess game. So now I'm gonna pick something that divides evenly into 6. Is that a good idea?
2.
2.
2, 3, 6, 1. Try forever. I don't know. I guess I'll try 2. I heard 2. Drop that down. Multiply. Add. Multiply. Add. Multiply. Add. Did I do that right?
Yeah.
Okay, that one worked out nicely, right? So that means you go back here to your factory. That x minus 4 is still there. You can't get rid of it. But now I have another factor. Because 2 is a 0, what's my other factor?
X minus 2.
Ah.
Wait, x minus 4 is still our factor.
It's still there. It can't be, because that was our versus
We're
versus.
doing the second half.
Yes, thank you. Yes, we're doing that second half. So that's the x minus 2, and then I have the x squared, a 2x, and a negative 3.
So
We
those,
got 3.
the 1, 0, 97, 6 was just the quotient from the one before?
Yes.
I'm just confused on why we kept, why, if we
Yeah,
already
we're not
found
done.
one factor.
We're not done. You gotta keep going. You gotta keep going. Keep factor. Factor all the way.
X squared.
Because it was a cube, so then the quotient goes down to a square.
At what point will we know that we factored all that we can?
And everything is linear. There's no more squares or cubes.
That
Everything
means
is linear.
we've got to factor that one more time.
So we're not done yet. We got one more to go. So here's what we're gonna do. I am now down to a quadratic.
So you don't have to do synthetic division.
So you don't have to do synthetic division for the quadratic, because now you already know how to factor that. I've taught you so well, or your previous algebra teacher did, right? Isn't that just the x plus 3, x minus 1?
Yeah.
Right, how that factors into that? Again, this factors into that. Multiplies to negative 3, adds to 2.
So then you know all your zeros.
Ta-da!